Hi, I'm Steve Glaudini, producing artistic director for Moonlight Stage Productions, and joining us this afternoon is in a conversation with Larry Raben, the beloved Larry Raben. Hi,
Hello,
Larry. How you
Vogel.
holding up in
Yeah,
all of
doing good, doing good. I'm using this time to try to clean up my computer. I got rid of 10,000 emails recently. It's amazing how those things pile up and you just don't pay any attention to them.
Yeah,
And trying to just keep my brain active and some creativity going and looking toward the future and focusing on that rather than dwelling on the present. So trying to see
right.
the gift in all of this.
Well, Fred had a good question for me last week, so I'm going to throw that to you. What have you been binge watching?
Ooh, Ozark right now. Ozark.
Ooh,
I'm obsessed. I like wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I have to talk myself into going back to sleep because I want to crawl back out and watch it. And I know I'm late to the party on that one, but man, is it good. It's so dark
yeah.
and so fun.
Yay. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about your experience being at Moonlight and what the process was of casting Kinky Boots last month
Yeah.
when before all this madness hit and all that jazz. So what's your first Moonlight memory?
My first Moonlight memory is I went down to see David in Children of Eden. And
Ah,
so that was on the old stage, the old facility. But man, I remember the very first time I came in through the gates and walked down the path and just looked at that big expanse of lawn and how beautifully situated it was. And, the driving down from LA, there's all the pollution until you get to a point around Oceanside where it all just kind of clears out. And then coming in a little bit inland, I just thought the quality of the light was different. It was
yeah.
like heaven was smiling on this perfect little bowl. And so I thought it was amazing. And, just blown away by the production quality, the sets, the costumes, the full orchestra, and then it was a genius cast. So it really felt like seeing a Broadway show outside, which was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty special. And it's funny because I was in 2003 and it took you 10 years from then to make your Moonlight debut in Young Frankenstein.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah.
Because you
Well,
were a little busy in between that.
I was back and forth to New York a bit, and
Yeah.
right, I was living in New York, I was living in Vegas, I was doing some other stuff. But I could not be more proud of that production of Young Frankenstein. To have the national tour costumes and sets, and that genius, insane bunch of comedians, and I just loved it. And anything Mel Brooks, anything, anywhere, anytime.
Yeah.
That my heart and my sense of humor. So yeah,
And
loved
of course, the show that kept you away from Moonlight for several years is because you were doing the producers
Yes, lucky
on Broadway
get to,
in Vegas.
to get to do it on Broadway, to play Leo Bloom on Broadway, and then to go do the whole Vegas run was dreamy. And as a matter of fact, this Friday we're doing a Zoom reunion with the
Oh,
Vegas cast. I was just on the phone with Leroy Reams, and Susan Stroman is going to be there. And so, yeah, it's going to be very, very
is,
special. We were super.
is the Hawk going to be there?
I don't know. I haven't reached out to him, but I should. And I need to reach out to Tony Danza too and see if those guys will come, because that would be fun.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
And of course, our audiences remember you from setting the original production last summer, our season opener last year, and you again starred as Leo Bloom, and was an absolute delicious romp putting you and Jamie Torslini back together again. You know?
Oh God, hardly anybody better to be on stage with than Jamie. Just he gets that little devilish glint in his eyes, and you're like, okay, where are we going now?
Well,
But we
your
love
entire cast, your entire cast last summer had that. Katie Barna did, Luke Harvey Jacobs did, Josh and Max. It was a great group.
Oh, gosh, yeah, couldn't have been better. And again, to have the full orchestrations,
Yeah.
was dreamy. And the thing that probably the audience, I guess they never get to experience, the one thing that makes it so special as an actor is, I remember the first time when we were doing Young Frankenstein, it happened to be a full moon. And when you're on stage, you watch that full moon rising up over the back of the audience. So you get this incredible light show in the night that the audience, then they eventually see it when it comes over the other side. But just magic.
It is. Well, and closing night of the producers last summer had the double rainbow. Remember that?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
The cast
Uh,
came out of the Schubert Theater, and they just saw these two glorious rainbows.
uh,
It was incredible.
it's
Okay, so that was 2013 was your Moonlight debut as an actor, but your Moonlight debut as director was the following year. Can you talk about that experience? Do you remember? Catch Me If You Can.
Oh, I was going to say, was it Sunset Boulevard? Oh gosh, Catch Me If You Can. I saw the show in New York. I think that Mark Shame and Scott Whitman score is stupendous. Um, uh, just love how stylized it is, how beautiful it is. And what I loved is getting a chance to put my own stamp on it. And in the Broadway production, it looked like The Tonight Show or like a Las
Right.
Vegas telethon. It had risers with the orchestra in it the whole time. And so I put them back in the pit. And but I kept the detective Hanratty on stage watching the whole thing because I didn't feel like once Frank Jr. had been apprehended by the FBI that he would let him out of his sight for a moment, and it added different levels for the actors playing those roles, and I was really proud of it, and loved seeing the way the Moonlight audiences connected with it. I mean, a lot of people said it was their favorite show that they had seen in years and years, and just think,
Well, it's such a unique piece, and I remember seeing it on Broadway and thinking the same thing. It's like they wanted to be this hullabaloo, but then it also has this really great book by Terrence McNally. And
yeah,
so I was
Terrence.
struggling because you're watching great scenes while someone's cleaning their instrument behind them, and
Yeah.
it just kind of. So I agreed with you 100% about putting them back in the pit and telling the story, and keeping Hanratty on stage was brilliant. And that
Well,
was a
and
brilliant cast too.
you as a producer, you got me all of the toys, and we had those original projections. But unlike on Broadway, where they saw those projections kind of through corridors
Right.
of instruments and risers, we had just full stage. And the opening number is called Live in Living Color. And it was live in living wall to wall color. And it just made for such a beautiful night. And then Carl Warden's choreography was stupendous.
Award winning.
Award winning, yes. He first day of rehearsal, he said, "I'm going to win a trapezoid for this." That's kind of a joke going on. That's the San Diego Critics Circle Award, and by gosh, he did,
That
and
was spectacular.
worth it. Yeah,
So
it,
then you followed Catch Me with Sunset,
Sunset.
2016, right? Or was it Titanic? What was?
Oh gosh, Steve, I should have looked at the
I,
chronology.
th- I think Titanic was in 2016,
Yeah, that makes sense. Titanic, and then
and
and
then Sunset.
after.
So talk about what it was like with Titanic.
Oh gosh. Um, Again, another epic piece of theater. I think we had 28 in the pit for that. We had a cast of 34. Uh,
Wow.
you know, just numbers that are inconceivable in other venues as a director to get to work with that many artists on a piece. We had a very stylized set. When I had seen the show originally in New York, it was a beautiful and functioning set, but it showed it literally with letterbox, the lower class of the ship, and then it would go second class, and it would move up and show first class, and it would kind of go back and forth. And then sometimes when they were out on the deck, it was full stage. But it was all of the framing for it was gray, and I thought it always felt to me like a battleship. I didn't get a sense that we were on the most sumptuous luxury ship ever built in the world. And so when I talked to you, I said, you know, my concept was to go back and take original photos of the different rooms and corridors that exist, and to front and rear project for that. And thank you, Mr. Producer, you got me all of those toys.
It was beautiful. It
Oh,
was, and perhaps people still say it's one of the best sung casts. Like the singing was just so magnificent that,
yes.
pretty
Yeah,
special.
Norman Large, who did, you know, so many shows on Broadway, so many beautiful, you know, Les Mis and Cats and
Anthem.
yes, yes, and on and on and on. He said that it was the best ensemble of singers that he had ever worked with, and that's, you know, Ellen McMahon,
Yeah.
and the amazing, you know, Southern California talent that came together for that. So yeah, that was
And then you followed Titanic with another upper, Sunset Boulevard.
I think there's a theme here. I think I'd like to direct big epic musicals. Um, yeah, Sunset Boulevard. Oh, man, that Andrew Lloyd Webber score it's so sweeping and glorious. And again, we had Norman Large as Max. We had Valerie Perry
Yeah.
and Norma Desmond. Could not have been more glorious. And we had Robert Townsend as Joe, and he was just perfect. And it's a show that I had seen in London when Patti LuPone first did it. So that's the first way that I heard the score sung. And I saw many other actresses in the meantime doing the show, and they were all wonderful, good proficient singers, wonderful actors. But Valerie, for me, sang it like Patty. It blew your head against the back of your seat. And then, you know, she's so beautiful and such a talented, deeply emotionally feeling actor that
She's such a lovely human being.
oh gosh, the best, the
That
best.
was the best.
Those three, all of the rehearsals with those three, it was a very special place, very special, as we talked about the piece and really worked on it. And then the amazing supporting cast and ensemble, again, giant in number and in sound. So really
It was
proud of
pretty
that.
special. And then you got to do the San Diego premiere of Newsies.
Yeah. Now this one, I mean, big musically, absolutely, but choreographically was, you know, just wall to wall. And I was teamed up again with Carl, and Carl's Newsies choreography was nothing short of thrilling. He, man, he kicked those boys into gear, and I just fell in love with his hopeful story, you know, of Jack and these newsboys and the strike. And we had the amazing Hank Stratton, who came out of, well, his teaching, his semi-retirement, to play Pulitzer, and Katie McDonough. Gosh, and just an amazing story. A beautiful set, a stylized set that we got to really use and manipulate all over the stage. And Dylan Clenna, loved Dylan.
And Austin with Crutchy's.
Gosh, Austin's
It,
crutch,
it,
heartbreaking.
yeah, he was so good.
Yeah,
So,
and Scott Arnold.
yeah, it was a wonderful group of young, amazing talent, triple threats.
It was good, and it was actually Carl's idea, but I loved it. We had a youth ensemble in it that were actually the real age of a lot of the real newsboys that factored into some of the numbers, and we took them out into the audience. And I think it just gave it a little extra level of meaning when people were being handed strike pamphlets by kids that were forced to work
Right.
at 8, 9, and 10. And yeah, so it was a good piece of history. Great score. Really fun.
Wonderful production. And then, of course, as we covered, you did the producers.
Yes, I did.
All
Lean
right.
back,
So,
up off their backs.
yeah, right. And so now, can you talk about your history with Kinky Boots?
Yeah, Peggy Hickey is my choreographic partner on it, and a year ago we did the first major production after within proximity of New York City after the Broadway production closed. It ran 6.5 years, and it closed in April, and our show went up in July, August, and because of the proximity to New York, and also just as an artistic choice, the theater did not license the Jerry Mitchell version, which was great. Jerry's work was phenomenal. But Peggy and I had a chance to put our own stamp on it. And it was really, really satisfying artistically. Just a phenomenal story about people from two different upbringing, very different socially, class-wise, ethnically. Everything about their lives is completely different, and how they come together and how they change and affect each other. And there is the lead character, one of the leads, Lola, is a drag performer. And as I sat and watched that show on Long Island last summer at the matinees, the median age was probably 80, maybe 75. And man, when Lola told Charlie off, these audiences just hooted and hollered and cheered. And I thought, how amazing to see how people have grown in the last decade. And I thought these are people that wouldn't have understood the story of a drag performer and what they go through. And I think it just did my heart so much good to see this audience being so moved by Lola's journey for self-acceptance. And then also Charlie, who, inherits a factory that he doesn't want to work in. He wants to move out of small town England and into London, and is forced to come back when his father dies prematurely to take over. And watch how Charlie deals with that journey and finds his own love for shoes.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a great story. I can't wait for people to come see it. Peggy and I are so excited to work on it. The auditions were amazing. The talent level that showed up was really off the charts.
Well, and Peggy, what is expected from her choreography for the Angels was just like mind-blowing.
Yeah, she dances. There are 6 angels that are the backup girls for Lola, and she dances them way harder than they ever did in the Broadway production. And it's exciting. So those guys came in their heels, and it was a throwdown because they all really wanted to show. And then you've got, a great pop score by Cyndi Lauper,
right?
And an amazing book by Harvey Fierstein. And yeah.
Well, when we saw Kinky Boots on our first donor trip in 2013, and it was everyone's favorite show that we saw that trip. Again, we're talking older donors, and there's been a little pushback from some of our older audience members of whether or not this is appropriate for the Moonlight. And I'm like, it has the best message of the summer is in Kinky Boots.
Yeah.
I mean, and we're doing ragtime, but Kinky Boots, I can, but I mean, it's so powerful and it's so moving. And I went to go see it at 3D Theatricals. They did it a couple months ago. And it was the first time that theater was packed with people in their 70s who were having the time of their life.
Yeah.
They really were having the time of their life. And we're putting all the positive energy out there that it could happen, but we're realistic. And if it can't happen this summer, it will happen next summer. And, we'll get through these times, my friend.
We know that it's going to happen at Moonlight, and I think as we're all spending this time now reconnecting with families and things, I think stories like both Charlie and Lola, Kinky Boots at its core, I think, is really a story about fathers and sons, and how it can be a very complicated relationship, and how these men find their own healing, but find their connection to their dad, the best parts of their dad in themselves,
right.
How that makes them the men they want to be.
Yeah, no, it's incredibly special. But on top of all that, we did have the Broadway sets and costumes for that show, so we had all those spectacular wigs and heels and boots, and but we're going to do it. We're going to do it. Just so people understand the severity of what this pandemic has had. How many jobs have either you lost or have postponed? You were the busiest man I knew. So What, name them, because I want to say your first day of rehearsal was the Thursday that Broadway closed, right?
That was my first day of rehearsal for MAME at Musical Theater West. They canceled it that day, moved it back to August, and it's now been moved until 2021. They're hoping it'll go in next season. So I don't know if that's a job that I have or not, but they're committed to wanting to do the show. At the end of March, I was starting rehearsals for West Side Story. That's been pushed back to a year from March. In May, I was supposed to start rehearsals for Mamma Mia at La Mirada. It got pushed back to May of 2021. I still have a production of Newsies that they haven't canceled yet that's supposed to go into rehearsals at 5 Star in mid-June, which would mean it's opening in late July. I can't imagine it's going to happen, but we never know. And then Kinky Boots we're on the fence about, and I'm supposed to be directing a play in Canada, 6 dance lessons in 6 weeks, with Sally Struthers.
And wasn't there a Matilda in there too?
Oh my gosh, Matilda, yes, thank you. I was supposed to go back east to do Matilda. And that isn't officially canceled yet either, but again, they're on Long Island. New York being the epicenter, I can't imagine any live theater is going to be happening this summer. So yeah, that's all.
It's so insane. I mean, that's what, 7 jobs?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I was just talking with Justin, and I was like, well, this was supposed to be Tech Week. So we should have been spacing an American in Paris tonight. This coming Saturday was supposed to be the first rehearsal for Something Rotten, while we're having our Sitz Probe for an American in Paris, which would be opening a week from tomorrow. And so I look at my calendar and I don't have a day off for 4 months that's all it feels like I'm so not used to just being home. I mean, my wife just the other day is like, honey, we've never eaten lunch this many times together ever in our whole marriage.
I'm caught up on my sleep.
Yeah.
It's like, well, how did that happen? But yeah. So, I mourn all of the loss of jobs, opportunities, knowing that we're all in the same boat with it.
Right.
I think makes everybody more patient, and knowing that we will come out of it. We always do.
And that's the thing, is that just stay home. I know people are getting frustrated and they're crowding beaches and legislature, but let's not waste these 2 months that we've been home. I mean, I don't want it to all go for nothing. Right. If this virus takes another peak, and it's like, but that's what's great about when you work for a city, is that we are given up-to-date, information from the governor, and of course we'll comply with any mandate that comes from the governor's office. But it is just a bizarre time. It is.
Yes, it is. Well, and hopefully a place like Moonlight can open sooner than indoor venues. I feel like I'm always wearing my face covering when I'm out, but you're less likely to catch anything in the open, fresh air than you are when you're inside your grocery store.
And believe me, I mean, we are already brainstorming every kind of scenario when gatherings can happen, whether it be 50 to 100, because we're lucky. The Moonlight's large enough that we can realistically social distance people. Yeah. But you can't do that to a cast. You can't do it to a cast of Cinderella. How are you going to waltz if you have to be social distancing? How can you have a cast of 34 in ragtime? How can you do Kinky Boots if you have to social distance? So people forget about the actors, because they're on top of each other on stage. They're singing, so they're not wearing any protective masks. Many singers spit, so it's the danger for the performer, is so much greater as well. So we all just have to do what's right. But I mean, people will come to a concert, or Eric Anderson and Jessica are still down in La Jolla, and they're like, oh, we'll come to a gig, and that's 2 people. I can social distance 2 people and just give people a little bit of normalcy. But it all
people, we want to feel the energy of other people around us. All the binge watching at home is great. And thank heavens we have access to as much entertainment as we do. But there's nothing like the shared experience of hearing other people's laughter or their sobs, whatever it is, but having that shared experience, the energy of people in a combined space, it makes the human experience feel richer. And I know we're all longing to get back to that.
Yeah, we are. So I just wanted to thank you for giving us some of your time.
Oh,
And
gosh. Thank you for checking in. I mean, Moonlight has truly been an amazing artistic home for me. And, you know, on stage or directing, it's anytime I'm down there, it's just paradise.
well, we love you, your family, you know that.
I love Moonlight.
You stay healthy and safe, and we'll see you on the other side of all this.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to go put on my mask that Bet's made, and I'm going to go take a walk.
Perfect. Love you.
Okay. Love you. Take care.